What would be a better topic as a first video on this channel than to talk about the first time? Now, we all have memories of our first time, the awaiting, the anxious awaiting, the hope, the imagination how it would be, that we might have waited for months or even years at some point in between, maybe giving up, believing I'll be the unlucky one, it'll never work with me. And it's kind of the same way in the story when it comes to my first gun. This here is my first. Let me show you that it's safe. We'll see the chamber is empty. So this is my first gun. It's a Rossi revolver, a Snubnose. I don't even know the exact type. I was not able to identify it because on my paperwork it just says Rossi. This gun I bought in March 2018 in Panama during the time they had the embargo where you couldn't import new guns. So the used guns went for ridiculous prices. And I bought the cheapest gun I could find to get along with the process to allow it. In April of 2018, it was fired. And from then on, I was told it'll take a month or two. From then on, I was waiting for it. I was told the government will call me on my cell phone number. And obviously, I didn't know from which number they would call. So for several years, I took every single phone call from an unknown number, scammers, call centers trying to sell me anything, banks trying to sell me my 50th credit card. I took them, and if I missed one of those spam calls, I would be sad because I thought like this could have been the one. This could have been the one. During that time, I went 10 to 15 times to the office. At that time, it was that the government was anti-gun. The law says within 30 days, they need to make a decision. Within 30 days, they approved my license, but they simply didn't hand out the gun. At that time, the rumor was that supposedly you needed to help a little, to grease some palms, to make it possible. And for me, it is clear that in a Latin American country, things might not go 100% perfect every single time, and not everything might require 100% accuracy. But when it comes to items like guns, I rather stick to the letter of the law and don't dare to do anything illegal. So I refused to pay what I was told it's supposed to cost. I thought if I can't get it legal, I better don't get it at all. And that was how it progressed. And when I went 10 to 15 times to the office, they would like to tell me, yeah, after 3 hours of waiting, of course, it wouldn't go like in 5 minutes. After 3 hours of waiting, I would find somebody and he said, yeah, we are currently working on it. You're going to get your call in 2 weeks, en 2 semanas. And it turned out to be like a meme, an inside joke in my circle that en 2 semanas means somewhen or never. And in between, I was at a point where I expected it would never work out. Then the new government came. They were more open to guns. They allowed the importation again, but I still wouldn't get it. And I still would go in there, and at some point, finally, the call came, and it was in May 2022, after 49 months, that I finally got my gun. And I think the enthusiasm I have today about guns will have its roots in there as well. It has roots somewhere else too. Guns are not new to me. I grew up in a hunter's family at a time when in Germany the laws for storing guns weren't as strict as today. So guns, I touched them before, I saw them before. Then I served in the German army. I shot pistols, submachine gun, machine gun, assault rifle, anti-tank weapons. I was not fresh to guns. But the fact that I had to wait for 49 months kind of made it feel like it's something so much more special than it should have been. And I think this is one part of why the enthusiasm for guns I have now, how it is rooted, where it comes from. This gun now, to talk about it, it's a Rossi. Rossi is a Brazilian company created by Amadeo Rossi, I think over 100 years ago. It at some point was supposedly the biggest company in South America, the biggest arms company in South America. And I think, if I'm not wrong, 2008, they sold their revolver section to Taurus, another Brazilian company. And now you find the old Rossi revolvers under Taurus. Rossi guns you can still find, but now it's lever action, small caliber, usually 22, and supposedly air guns and airsoft guns. This is one, it should be from pre-merger or pre-buying by Toros. I have no idea from when the gun is. I don't know the exact type. I found on the internet some that look like it, but even there I'm not completely sure. But it is a small Snubnose 5-shot revolver, which makes it kind of usable. When I got it though, it was over 4 years in the National Police Vault that is unclimatized in a tropical country. So when I pulled the trigger, let me just check again. Yep, it's all empty. When I pulled the trigger stayed back like this. It didn't move forward. I had to move it with my hand at proper cleaning afterwards, and then it started working again. I guess for self-defense, I should have the spring changed, which leads us to the other point. If we see how bent up it is, in which horrible shape it is, I now met a gunsmith who could basically renovate the gun, give me new grips, which also feel like they are falling apart. He could put a Cerakote on it, make it look like new, but I decided I'm going to keep it in this way. If I sell it right now, I make a huge loss. I don't need to sell it, so I'll keep it as a memorabilia in its horrible shape as it is, as a reminder of the struggle, of the waiting, of the long wait to my first gun. But that's the story of my first gun. So obviously you probably now want to see it shoot. My experience with it is that it's really nice for concealed carry. So I have the pouch here. As a Snubnose, obviously it has limited capacity, but if you have it like this here, it's basically invisible to see. You don't feel it, so it's comfortable to carry, which means that you're much more likely to carry the gun with you instead of leaving it at home. And as a Snubnose, for the usual self-defense distance of, let's say, 5 meters, it will do the trick. I don't see an issue with this. After that, reloading will obviously be challenging. But the nice thing is, as a double action, the trigger pull here is insanely strong. So if you holster it and just keep your thumb on it, you're fine, nothing is going to happen. And I see no reasonable scenario where the gun should go off on its own once it's like this, unless of course it's one of those where you might hit the trigger, the hammer, and that fires the gun. But unless it's something like this, this is a really nice gun for self-defense, for concealed carry, if you are fine with a limited capacity of just 5. And if not this, then it's nice to train, because the trigger control, to be able to pull in the right amount without moving your whole hand, using a double action revolver to train this, to control your trigger finger, is probably one of the best means to ever do that. But let's go right in and see how it shoots. Okay, we see the gun is loaded now. I'll use for reload one of those quick loaders. You simply turn it on the top and it releases the bullets. There are different versions of it, but this is the one I have. And I also have quick loading stripes. They are made of plastic and you just squeeze them in, but I'll just show you. This gun is single double action, so you can pull back the hammer and then you barely have a trigger pull, which is good for longer distances. What we have here is probably 30 meters, roughly about that, 25, 30 meters. Yeah, probably 30. So what's that? 33 yards. Hitting at this distance, a torso size is already somewhat of a challenge. It's for an experienced shooter, which I am not too much. It's not much of a challenge, but for a newbie, it would already be difficult. And I'll demonstrate to you, I'll try to hit, and you'll see the difference between single and double action. But obviously for self-defense, single action is not needed. You just pull out and shoot the guy who's running at you with a knife right now. In this point, it'll do. During the cut, I realized one thing. First of all, I'm holding the revolver in kind of like the teacup hold. That's what we actually learned in the German Armed Forces 22 years ago. But in this case, it's also needed, or I felt it's needed, because if I hold it by-handed with 2 hands, the front of my thumb almost is crossing over the drum of the revolver. So, and I don't really want the tip of my thumb being barbecued while shooting. That's one thing. And the other thing is, I mentioned that I went to the office, to the authority for firearms a lot of times, and almost every time it was accompanied by a friend, Carlos Aguilar, who had no need for that, no responsibility. I didn't pay him for it. He did it just out of friendship. Again and again and again, he went there with me, trying to help me get my gun, and without him, it would have probably not been possible. He now he just did it out of friendship and for the fact that he's a gun enthusiast himself, and he's so much of an enthusiast that by now he actually has his own gun shop, Gun House Panama, house written like in Germany. So in case you're in Panama, try to check it out. He really deserves some credit for allowing me to live my hobby here in Panama. So we'll start with single action. No, one miss. So the quick loader in there, turn, out, and now double action. Okay. 1 out of 5. As said, I'm anything but a great shot, but you could see the difference here. But then again, obviously the distance to the target matters massively. And if you carry for self-protection, you're probably not going to shoot at 30 meters under any realistic scenario. It's fairly unlikely that you have to use it for this. And at short distance to shoot just like this, the guy who's charging at you, it'll do the trick. It slipped over one. That's one of the nice things about a revolver, obviously. If you have a malfunction with the ammo, you can just keep squeezing the trigger, whereas with a pistol, you have to rack the slide to eject the faulty ammo. Usually, it's far less prone to malfunctions, but if it has one, it's usually a catastrophic one and you won't get the gun to work again. So it's kind of a mixed bag. But generally, I do like revolvers. They are fun to shoot, easy to shoot, and as said, with double action, great for training your hand. So the 3 amigos, the 3 fingers here, don't squeeze too hard and make you lose the target. And we have one more. So let's just simulate, I guess, how it would be in a self-defense scenario. I'll put the finger on the trigger so I don't hurt myself while putting it in. And then you would just try to draw it from a short distance, probably with the left hand to defend yourself against an attacker. But a great gun for this as a Snubnose. This one example, probably not the best one, but it said for me it holds memories as it was the one that finally ended my virginity when it comes to my own guns that I personally own.